Hey everyone, and a very warm welcome back to English Podcast. I'm your host, Alex, and as always, it's fantastic to have you joining me today. You know, we often go through our days on autopilot, navigating challenges, celebrating small wins, just living. But have you ever paused to really consider the invisible force that's steering so much of our experience? I'm talking about our thoughts, that constant internal chatter, the stories we tell ourselves, the beliefs we hold, often without even realizing it. There's this incredibly profound idea, one that's been around for ages but feels more relevant than ever, and it's summed up in a simple phrase: you become what you think. It sounds straightforward, maybe even a bit cliché to some, but what if it's one of the most powerful truths about our human potential? Today, instead of just dissecting this concept academically, we're going to take a slightly different approach. We're going to explore its impact through a more immersive, story-driven lens. We'll journey with characters who, like many of us, grapple with their inner worlds, and we'll witness how their thoughts, both conscious and unconscious, sculpt their realities, leading them through struggle and ultimately towards profound transformation. So I invite you to get comfortable, maybe grab a cup of tea and open your mind. Let's delve into this fascinating narrative together. Our storyteller is ready to guide us. Have you ever felt stuck? Like you're walking through life in a bit of a fog, with things happening to you rather than because of you? Maybe your days feel like a repeat of yesterday's anxieties, or perhaps you dream of something more, something different, but it always seems just out of reach. It's a common feeling, that sense of being a passenger in your own life. Today, we're diving into a timeless idea, a profound truth that has been echoed by thinkers and sages for centuries, often captured in the simple yet incredibly powerful phrase, "You become what you think." We're not just going to talk about it. We're going to journey through what this really means, exploring the story of how our inner worlds sculpt the reality we experience. This isn't just a concept, it's the narrative of human potential. Imagine a man named Arthur. Arthur wasn't a bad person, not at all, but if you asked him, life was, well, a bit of a letdown. He worked a job he found mind-numbingly dull, his relationships felt strained and superficial, and his health was, as he put it, just okay, I suppose. Mornings for Arthur often began with a sigh, his mind instantly replaying a mental checklist of worries, the bills, the demanding boss, the loneliness that gnawed at him in the quiet hours. His thoughts were a constant hum of negativity. "I'll probably mess this up," he'd think before a presentation. "No one really understands me," would echo when a friend seemed distant. "I'm just unlucky," he'd conclude when something didn't go his way. Arthur's mind was like an untended garden, overgrown with the weeds of doubt, fear, and resentment. He genuinely believed these thoughts were simply reflections of his reality. He didn't realize they were the very seeds creating it. So his days unfolded accordingly. The project at work, approached with the thought of failure, did indeed falter. Friendships viewed through a lens of misunderstanding became more strained. His physical health, constantly under the cloud of worry and low expectations, remained stubbornly just okay. Arthur was caught in a cycle, his external world a perfect mirror to his internal landscape. He felt like a victim of circumstance, never once suspecting he was, in many ways, the architect of his own unease. Now let's picture Sarah. Sarah's early life wasn't much different from Arthur's in terms of external challenges. She faced setbacks, disappointments, and moments where the world felt overwhelmingly grey. Her mind, too, was often a whirlwind of anxieties. She'd think, what if I'm not good enough? or things like that don't happen for people like me. Her days were tinged with a quiet desperation, a longing for something more, but a deep-seated belief that it was perhaps unattainable. One rainy afternoon, seeking shelter in a dusty old bookstore, Sarah stumbled upon a slim, unassuming volume. Its title was simple, something about the power of thought. Idly, she began to read. The words on the page weren't entirely new. She'd heard phrases like positive thinking before, often dismissing them as simplistic. But this was different. It spoke not just of wishing, but of the profound creative force of one's habitual mental state. It described the mind as a garden where either we consciously cultivate beautiful flowers and nourishing fruits, or we allow weeds to grow rampant, choking out the potential for beauty. A sentence leaped out at her. A man is literally what he thinks, his character being the complete sum of all his thoughts. She reread it, and again. Could it be that simple, and yet that profound? Skepticism warred with a tiny, flickering ember of hope. What if the constant, anxious chatter in her head wasn't just a reaction to her life, but was actively shaping it? This was Sarah's awakening. It wasn't a sudden, dramatic lightning bolt, but a quiet, persistent dawning. She started to observe her thoughts, really observe them, like a scientist studying a strange new specimen. And she was horrified. She saw the relentless negativity, the self-criticism, the fearful projections into the future. It was as if she'd been living with a constant, critical narrator in her head, one she had never before consciously acknowledged. The book suggested that character, circumstance, health, and achievement were not random occurrences, but the direct results of the thoughts we consistently entertain. It spoke of purpose, that until thought is linked with a clear, unwavering purpose, there can be no intelligent accomplishment. This resonated deeply with Sarah's own feeling of drifting. So she decided to experiment. It felt awkward at first, even a little foolish. When a familiar negative thought arose, "I'll never be able to afford that trip I dream of," she would consciously stop it. Then she would try to replace it, not with a wild, unbelievable fantasy, but with a thought that felt a little better, a little more aligned with her desires. "I am capable of finding ways to increase my income," or "I can start saving a small amount today towards my dream." This wasn't about denying reality. It was about consciously choosing the quality of her internal reality, the seeds she would plant in her mental garden. It was hard work. The old, weedy thoughts were persistent, deeply rooted. There were days she felt overwhelmed, days the negativity seemed to win, but she persisted day by day. Thought by thought, she began to understand that her mind was her most precious resource, a creative powerhouse that she had, until now, allowed to run wild and untamed. Think about that garden analogy for a moment. If you want beautiful roses, you don't just hope for them while letting thistles and nettles take over. You prepare the soil. That's your foundational beliefs. You carefully plant the rose seeds. Those are your new, positive, empowering thoughts and intentions. You water them with attention and belief. And, crucially, you diligently pull out the weeds, the doubts, the fears, the limiting beliefs, as soon as they appear. Sarah started to cultivate thoughts of purpose. She asked herself, what do I truly want to contribute? What makes me feel alive? Instead of focusing on what she lacked, she began to focus on her strengths, her passions. She'd always loved writing, but had dismissed it as an impractical dream. Now she allowed herself to think, I am a writer, I have stories to tell, and I can learn how to share them. She started dedicating just 30 minutes a day to writing, nurturing that thought with consistent action. When thoughts of her health arose instead of the usual, "I'm always so tired," she began to affirm, "my body is strong and capable of vibrant energy. I choose to nourish it well." This led to small changes: a walk during her lunch break, choosing water over soda, getting to bed a little earlier. These weren't drastic overhauls dictated by willpower alone. They were natural extensions of her changing thought patterns. She was thinking health, and so her actions began to align. The transformation wasn't instantaneous. It was a gradual unfolding, like a flower turning towards the sun. But slowly, surely, things began to shift. At work, as she focused on her capabilities and approached tasks with a more positive, purposeful mindset, her colleagues noticed. Her boss, who once seemed so demanding, began to see her as resourceful and proactive. An opportunity arose for a project that involved writing, something that would never have seemed possible with her old thought patterns. Fueled by her new internal narrative, "I am a capable writer," she applied for it, and to her astonishment, she got it. Her relationships also began to change. As she cultivated thoughts of kindness, understanding, and self-worth, she found herself approaching people with more openness and less suspicion. The strain she used to feel began to dissipate. She attracted friends who resonated with her new, more positive energy. The loneliness that had once been a constant companion started to recede, replaced by a sense of genuine connection. Even her circumstances, the things she once believed were entirely outside her control, started to reflect her inner shift. Because she was thinking differently, she was acting differently. She was making different choices, noticing different opportunities, and radiating a different kind of energy. It was as if the world, like a mirror, couldn't help but reflect the image she was now consistently holding in her mind. She learned that while we may not always control every event, we absolutely control our response to events, and that response is born from our dominant thoughts. There were still challenges, of course. Life didn't suddenly become a perfect fairy tale. But now, when setbacks occurred, Sarah approached them differently. Instead of seeing them as proof of her inadequacy or bad luck, she saw them as opportunities for growth, as feedback. Her internal narrator had changed from a critic to a compassionate coach. The weeds of despair still tried to sprout, but she had become a skilled gardener, quick to identify them and replace them with thoughts of resilience and faith in her ability to overcome. One of the most profound shifts Sarah experienced was in her sense of peace. The constant, anxious hum that had been the soundtrack to her life began to quieten. By consciously choosing her thoughts, by focusing on purpose, gratitude, and love, she discovered an inner stillness, a serenity she had never known. This wasn't a passive state, but a dynamic peace born from a mind in harmony with its highest ideals. She realized that calmness of mind is not just a pleasant feeling, but a jewel of wisdom, a source of immense strength. The journey of you become. What you think isn't about denying pain or plastering over problems with forced positivity. It's about understanding the incredible creative power that resides within each of us, in our minds. It's about taking responsibility for our inner world, knowing that it is the fertile ground from which our entire life experience grows. It's about recognizing that every thought is a seed, and we are the master gardeners of our souls. Think of the dreamers, the visionaries, the people who have changed the world. They all began with a thought, an idea, an ideal held steadfastly. In their minds, often in the face of skepticism and adversity. They nurtured that thought, believed in it, acted upon it, and gradually it took form in the external world. They understood, consciously or unconsciously, that what they consistently dwelled upon, they would eventually become. and what they became, they would eventually achieve. So what about you? What seeds are you planting in your garden today? Are you cultivating flowers of joy, purpose, and love? Or are you allowing the weeds of doubt and fear to take root? The story of you become what you think is ultimately your story. It's an invitation to become a conscious creator in your own life, to observe your thoughts without judgment, and then with courage and persistence to choose the ones that align with the highest vision you hold for yourself. It's a journey of a lifetime filled with challenges, yes, but also with the profound joy of discovering your own power, your own potential, and the beautiful truth that the masterpiece of your life is, and always has been, waiting to be painted by the brush strokes of your mind.